Our speaker tonight is Fani Nicheva, owner and principal of Brave Brand, a company that leads individuals and businesses to define their own Brave brand and bring it to life. Fani's going to cover what branding is in plain English, branding for different nonprofits, and 6 myths that prevent a lot of us, I think, from branding our businesses or nonprofits and what to do about it. So Fani's background spans 2 cultures, American and Eastern European, and she draws creative lessons from both experiences. As she mentioned, if some of you were here early, she was born and raised in Bulgaria during communism and grew up acutely aware of the culture of commercial emptiness and ideological propaganda. She started studying languages and literature at the University of Prague in the Czech Republic. After earning a full tuition scholarship, yay for you, Fani, from Emmanuel College in Boston. She moved to America 20 years ago. She started as a creative director in a European ad agency, which gave her a strong background in advertising. Together with her husband, she co-founded graphic design studio Big Fish Small Pond Design in 2006 and started Brave Brand in 2018. You can look up her website. I encourage you to do that. She works with clients to find the big, brave idea in their life's work, to fuel authority and credibility, and to uncover the bravest opportunity to make their business stand out. Fani, I'm going to give your website a plug. It is Bravely Branded, BRAVELY, branded.com. I'll put that in the chat, everybody. And Fani, take it away. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for that great introduction. It's great to see all the ladies, and I really appreciate just being here and showing up for this at night, almost dinner time. So there's nothing more to say about me. Let's just dive in, and I have some slides. It's okay to share my screen, right, Lisa?
Yes, I'm going to make you a co-host. Just a moment. Co-host. You should be able to share your screen now. Great. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
It's good for everybody. All right, great. Uh-oh, Fani, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I don't know how that happened. Okay. I was saying the agenda for today is for us to talk about the 6 myths that keep you from investing in your brand, but I will tell you some definitions about what brand is in general, and then let's talk a little bit about nonprofits too, because most of you are, right? Am I accurate about this? Yeah. Okay. So thanks for having me. I'm Fani Nicheva. Let's just talk about branding straight off. And the first thing I want to say is that most people, the biggest mistake that people make is that they focus on creating a cool logo. They think logos equates brand or branding. And they miss the whole concept behind what's needed to turn the logo into something that people love and recognize, which is mostly about repetition. And often it's not even about how cool your logo is. And I know that most of you probably do have logos. Raise your hands if you have logos. I see that some of you are sitting in front. Yes. Okay. It's a very orthodox thing. It's the first thing that business owners are interested when building their brands. And the case in point is the swoosh by Nike. We're so used to seeing it. We love it, and we always think that that's what branding is. I think because it's so prevalent and it's everywhere, it's no surprise that most people equate the power of a brand with the power of a logo. And yes, this is a brilliant logo, and there's even a story behind it, but it is brilliant only because of the behemoth brand that backs it up, that comes with so much effort, repetition, and marketing as well. But a logo does not a brand make. So that's one distinction it's first off the bat, and I am a designer. I design a lot of logos, and that's what I do for a living. I build brands, but I want to say that if you're just starting out, maybe that's not what you should be focusing on, and you should just really have the understanding that logos are only iconic because the brand made them so. And it's just a small brand, they're a very small part of the brand. And yes, a bad logo can definitely hurt your business, but the opposite is also true. A very good brand can make a plain logo seem absolutely brilliant. And that's one simple truth that I want you to hold. It's a logo is not the brand, and it's not actually the first thing you should focus on. So what's a logo? A logo is pretty much just the mark that represents your company. That's all it is. And if you're thinking I'm harsh on logos, you're accurate. I just see too many businesses trying to do that first. And I don't want to, the reason why I'm being harsh on them is because I just don't want you to spin your wheels on getting the perfect logo, when instead of that, you should be building a brand that actually is going to make the logo sing. And there's so much going on into a brand. Okay, so what is a brand? The brand is the reason your logo exists, and it's everything behind it. It's the value, the feeling, the personality of your company. It's pretty much a logo without the brand is just another mark. And I know that I said that many times. And if I venture further, I want to say a brand is an idea. It's a perception of what people, it's a perception of people of you, and it lives in their minds. Sometimes it's different perception than you want it to be, which is why companies put so much effort into managing that perception. It's dollars and budgets that they just want to control that perception, that idea that people have in their mind of them. Brands are very dynamic because very often our customers will make up their perception of us, and we could control it to a certain point. If you have watched the movie Inception, you might remember the main character says in the movie, once an idea takes hold of the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate, which is why it's definitely why it's it's an asset for companies. And so this takes us to branding and how it relates to nonprofits. I think ideas are even more pertinent to your organizations. Why? Because I think your nonprofit organizations are even more so than others about causes, about ideas, and about principles. In that sense, there's more abstract backstory to them, but I know that you will understand me when I say that a single idea could help you disrupt and dominate, and also be very unique. And you might have, I'm sure you've noticed it, but and we do this all the time. Like, we walk down the street making snap judgments about people. We know we shouldn't do that, but we do it, and they do it about us. And you should know that the market does exactly the same thing about your brand. The marketplace makes snap judgments about who you are. And so when you actually have an idea that you want to lead with, they still would make a snap judgment, but it would be based on your best idea. So you have a better chance of getting on base. It's almost like pigeonholing yourself on purpose. Also, when you become known for a particular idea, you almost have carved like a niche or a corner in the marketplace that only you can own. And you can own it just by stepping into it. Sometimes it's that natural. And your idea could be the centerpiece of your website. You could be your next book. It could be your brand materials. It has legs, it has depth, and it's pretty much your differentiator, what puts you in front of everybody, what makes you stand out. My brand, for example, when you do go to my website, you'll notice it's very bright, it's very bold. It's all about bravery. The visuals are about that. There's a story behind, and I think and it's because it's personal to me as well. And it has helped me define bravery and lean on it and use it in my processes. So I can talk about ideas for a very long time. I love talking about ideas. I want to say something about branding in particular. When I dive into branding my clients, we often position them according to these 4 angles. What's your target market? What's your personality? What's your closing process? How do you sell things? What's the sale process? And then what's your core offer, which is pretty much the services that you have. How this differs for you, or how I think this is different for nonprofits, is that in addition to your target audience, you have to worry about donors and volunteers. You still have voice and personality. You should. You have a closing process because it's how you manage and handle money, and then in addition to your offer, you have to put your ideals and causes in display because they're very important for your donors and for the volunteers. So this is kind of like the caveat, I think, that makes branding slightly different for nonprofits. Because it's such an elusive concept, I wanted to go over six mistakes that solopreneurs like you, or maybe not like you, or maybe someone that you know make, and it keeps them from really not investing in branding. And the first one is they say, I already have a brand. And to this I say, yes, of course you do have a brand. All businesses have a brand, whether they invested in it or not, but an effective brand is one that works for you and actually brings you clients. For example, it builds trust before contact, warms up leads. So if you have a brand that you really like and you know exactly what it's doing for you, then it's probably a very successful one. But if you're not clear on how your brand messaging and visuals bring you clients, it's probably a good idea to think about branding and I think, or consider it. Because if you're just not sure what your brand is doing, whether it's harming you or whether it's helping you. And basically a good time to invest in your brand is if you're ready to do marketing. Sometimes it's, oh, I want to put up some ads, I want to have a brochure. It's a good time to acknowledge your brand because it's the foundation of everything else. And it would make the marketing a lot more successful. Okay, the other thing I often hear that prevents solopreneurs and small businesses from branding is when they say, I don't want to offend anyone, or they're scared of sticking their neck out. And I have to say that that's what branding is all about. It's about sticking your neck out. It's pretty much saying your real opinions about your industry, yourself, your colleagues, even your competitors, which is not an easy task for everyone. And you don't want to stick your neck out, and if you're shy, and I understand that, and you open yourself to a lot of criticism that way too. But I think, sorry, I went further. We're still on the I don't want to offend anyone. Since this is not an easy thing, and this is a big part of my brand bravery. I would say if you're ready to show the world what you really think, then it's time to think about investing in your brand. Okay, another myth: the lowest price always wins. I'm not sure, actually. Maybe if we have a little discussion, you'll tell me how exactly that relates to you. But I think you still offer services, and they still have to have a price point. If you believe all clients care mostly about price, and that to get sales you have to lower it, then branding is not for you. If you think your industry is just that way, there's just how it is. I think I'm also talking about you right now. Because if you're always playing the price of the undercutting price game, you are by definition not playing the branding game. And branding could never be worth the investment if you believe that the cheapest price is the one that always gets the sale. And I think even you who's playing that game knows that that last statement is not possibly true, because we're all surrounded by evidence of the contrary, right? There's no reason someone would buy a Jaguar over a Toyota Corolla if that was true. But I do know that a lot of us, when I was starting out, clients were always haggling me. I was always lowering my prices, and it's a very exhausting place to be. But the purpose of an effective brand is to draw your ideal customers to you and get them to buy what you offer regardless of price. And this is one angle in which branding really, really helps. So to be able to charge premium pricing, you should definitely pay attention to your brand, because that can only happen when you reliably and repeatedly deliver on a unique promise. And I know that all of you do, because you're all about promise and value and purpose. And your brand, or how you're different from your competitors, is the message, how you deliver that promise. I believe that it's possible in every business to get premium pricing. So if you're fed up with the lowest price game where everyone loses, I think, then you're finally ready to invest in your brand. So you might want to ask yourself that question. Next thing I often encounter is the question, where is my return on investment? I have to say, branding is kind of a long game. And I do hear people say, when do I get paid? What do I get in return? I built this website, I paid for a logo. I printed these brochures. And I think investing in your business, if you think investing in your business is only worth if you can get an instant return on it, you should probably reconsider branding, because it is a little bit of a longer play. Although it could steer up immediate results, but it is reputation building, and it is an investment. But it eventually grows your visibility, credibility, and thankfully, the more focused and consistent you are on your brand, the more results you get. So getting a high return on investment on branding doesn't happen if you have a hard time saying no to deals and discounts and haggling. Because I think when you're desperate for that extra buck tomorrow to keep your business afloat, then branding might not be a good investment for you right now. And in addition, a lot of business owners always tell me, "Oh, I can do it myself," and they often do. And I think it's okay. It's really okay if you want to do your logo yourself, you want to do your website yourself. And I think in many ways you should be involved in it, because a great brand, especially for a small service provider, is going to be born from the heart and soul of the owner. But articulating, sometimes distilling your brand in precise words and imagery, and I know Lisa can attest to that because she's a writer, that skill to articulate in a very concise and memorable way is a skill very, very few people outside of marketing have. And so luckily, there's a lot of actually do-it-yourself platforms and courses on branding that could give you an insight on how to do it yourself. And you should definitely do that, because it's branding without breaking the bank. But it is one way to dive into it. And finally, indecision. This is another myth, but it definitely prevents you from moving forward. And I think indecision is actually branding's mortal enemy. So if you have a symptom, which is why I noticed that it's a symptom of business owners who lack it. If you're allergic to making decisions, then investing in branding right now might not be for you, because one of the main purposes of having a brand is to have a very particular way and style of approaching everything. For example, a memorable way of answering the question, what do you do? Or you knowing exactly what you are or exactly what you're not. And branding tells you how to answer all these questions in your business, whether it's design or who to work with or what price to offer. And indecision stops you from moving forward with these very critical strategies. And I think but ask yourself, are you like that? And then maybe consider, well, maybe that's exactly the reason why maybe you should force yourself to start making some decisions. It might do your business a lot of good. So if you've ever fallen prey to any of those 6 myths that I pointed to, then I hope this discussion gave you a little insight and inspiration that maybe you should invest or look at your brand, or better yet, inspire you to brand yourself or rebrand yourself. And please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions. You can take a pic with your phone of this slide, and of course, I'll put my information in the chat for you. And at this point, I'll let our moderator let us know that, because I'm open for questions too. And
I have a question.
yes, Lisa.
I always have a question. So here's the question: how can nonprofits evaluate if their brand is effective? Like, everybody who's representing a nonprofit here, the nonprofit has a logo, they have a particular cause that they support or a mission. How do they go about saying, well, I think our brand is good or it's not serving us? Is it based on how many donations you're getting or how many people where do they start with evaluating that?
I think it often starts with the cash flow. That's often it's where it starts hurting first. We don't have enough revenue. I mean, cash flow is one thing, and then sometimes it's about not even breaking it even, and not even talking about profit, but we're not even breaking even, and that's a very good situation, scenario where you should think about branding, because it very well might be that your message is falling on deaf ears, or you're not attracting or closing the ideal people that should be coming to you for your services or for and oftentimes, so if you think you're doing marketing, but it has no effect, it's usually a good sign that there's something amiss with the messaging. Messaging is the first thing that is the most detectable thing that is probably in misalignment. Other thing that could be misaligned, that's not keeping you afloat financially, could be the way you're packaging your services. It could be the offer. Like, for example, a nonprofit school might have. I worked for a nonprofit school, and they had so many classes and so many ways of offering the parents the tuition, and it was so confusing. And it was, as opposed to, sometimes you just need to streamline it, and that's also that's how you present or package your offer, and that's about the sales process. But I think, Lisa, I don't know if this answered your question, but I think money is where it hurts first, and marketing too. If you feel like you're spinning your wheels on marketing and nothing much is happening.
I think some of the nonprofits that I have worked with, they keep doing what they've always done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's okay, this is the way we've always done it. And they don't know how to step back and look at it and say, could we do it a different way? Should we do it a different way? And I don't know how one does that without hiring a professional, because some of them don't have a lot of money to do that. So like, how can you build the intent inside the organization to say, we're going to step back and analyze this? Like, how do you change the mindset for that?
Yeah, I think the first thing, even if you just forget about branding for a second and then forget about marketing, just think about these two things. Who am I serving? How am I offering value? And what's the most direct way to do it? And maybe I can cut out a lot of fluff and things like that. And why isn't this in particular? Why isn't this working? And I think you know, we often get just lost in the weeds. Sometimes that's what prevents us from seeing the big picture. I think also is having blind spots ourselves. So teams, I know nonprofits have boards. The more diverse they are, the better. I think surveying people and asking their very honest opinion about where they think the issue is coming from is very important. It always, I think I would say, strive to have at least one marketing expert on your board to give you at least that edge is important. And align with your values. It's always check in about that. If you're true to yourself, are you expressing your values to the fullest extent, and are you achieving your full potential? Can this organization, like, ask yourself if this organization is my ideal version, what does it look like? To paint yourself a picture and then start from there. And often you might find out, like, I don't really need all these other things. I just need to be serving. I just need maybe just this one thing right now. Which branding is also about. It's about shedding layers and focusing. This is pretty much, I think, what I do all day. Try to get my clients to focus on 2 things instead of 3 and 1 instead of 2. So if you can do that for your business, that would be a huge win. Try to narrow it. I know it's hard. I know it's very hard.
Very, very good. I think we have a hand up by Julie would like to ask a question next.
Yes,
Yeah.
Julie.
Fani, thank you for the good information and for taking us through that. Could you talk about how you see things like taglines and mission statements interacting with creating a brand?
Yes. Taglines are a skill and definitely an art. And it ties with the skills, and I think it's all about language magic to attain a good tagline, but they are very powerful for nonprofits. I think if you can remember this, is when writing your tagline, and it's most of us who are in business for ourselves cannot write for ourselves, which is why we hire Lisa to do it for us. And even I, as a brand strategist, I had to get help from other brand strategists. It's almost like it's some kind of something about the human condition. But when we often just spill these cliches and these we come up with these very ordinary. Sometimes, most of the time, when we think of what we want to say, we say the jargony things. We always think of the things that are not specifically, we just don't express them in human language. But if a tagline is a very helpful thing for your business to have, and think of it as the emotional value proposition. So if you can ask yourself, how do I want everybody to feel when they see this tagline, and lead with that emotion, then you would be good. I'll give you like one example, like Volvo. I don't know what it is with cars. With me, I was doing research on cars and brand. For example, Volvo owns this idea about safety. That's their big idea. They own that corner of the marketplace. But their tagline is not, come to us if you insist on safety. Their tagline, which they have a few, but one of them is, nobody should die in a Volvo. And you hear that and you go, wow, that really got me. That gets me. So that's I think where emotion comes into play. That's where the human, I think if you know your audience really well, you should think about the emotional value of it. And also it is about sticking your neck out a little bit and saying exactly what you mean in these taglines. Did that answer your question, Julie? Okay.
Wonderful, wonderful. Any other questions we have from the group tonight? It just really, I love something like this. And then I don't love something like this. My brain's going so fast. I'm processing everything, and there was such good information. And then you need to bring it back to whoever your group is, and you need to have that conversation with them. And sometimes that can be difficult too. And so if you have any tips on that, I think that would be great. But just, not being afraid to have the conversation, I would think would be the first step.
Yes, you don't be afraid to have that conversation. I know that having multiple decision makers can definitely complicate everything. And it's usually important to maybe have like a North Star, maybe write a brief and have everybody, because there's so many opinions and we're so subjective about everything. I think a brief can center everything around a goal. If you can, and yes, there might be many reasons you might be anxious about having these conversations with your people. I think one person should be in charge of writing a brief, which is all about what's the objective, what's the most important thing right now, and then break down the goals and the steps of how to achieve it. And then kind of keep that brief as your bonfire, put it in front of yourselves and relate to it. It's so much easier to relate to a brief, which is your North Star, than to objective opinions that are all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most teams can agree on an objective. They can agree on what's the most important thing right now. What are the first steps we need to take?
Sounds like a good way to tackle it. Go ahead, Carol.
To even more clearly understand, could you give some examples of branding? Can you just give just a few examples? Just say like for different organizations or whatever. Can you do that, or is that not?
For different, I mean, there's Nike and Volvo. I mean, these organizations that I gave these examples in my presentation might not even relate to how exactly your businesses function, simply because not just because they're so big, but also because they sell products.
Right.
And I am wondering how many of you here actually sell products? Raise your hand if it's a product. Okay. And that, okay. Yeah, Tina, Nancy, what do you offer? What are you can unmute yourself and just tell me.
At the mission, we offer guided tours and we offer gift shop merchandise and things like that.
Okay, guided
Opportunities
tours.
for people to come and listen to a concert inside the mission church and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Tina, do you have some products that you offer?
Yes, so we have the retail side of what we do. So we carry from different vendors, we carry products. We also have some branded items, t-shirts and things like that we sell.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really the services that we provide. And then there's a branding aspect too, to that we do 2 major fundraisers every year. So we have a certain look and feel for those 2 fundraisers, and that includes the colors from our logo. So yeah.
So I asked this question, Vera, because I think that you approach branding for products in a very different way than branding for services. And I have a very narrow expertise, even though I came out of advertising background where we branded Procter and Gamble products, and we did commercials for shampoos, but it was so not, but I am narrowed focus now on branding service providers like me, people, businesses that offer consulting or services. And that's where my expertise lies. And I think when we brand ourselves, because we're small businesses, we cannot compare ourselves at all to these big companies, also because they have these large budgets for the repetition that's needed, right, to entrench something in someone's mind. And so, and that's even the reason why we have to be even bolder and more concise and even more crisp in our messaging, because we're smaller, but we have to, and don't be afraid to say it over and over again, because the repetition is everything, but you have to be very, yes, deep.
So if I can give an example from my organization, I work with a nonprofit called Life Elder Care, and we provide free services and support for seniors to help them age in their home. Unfortunately, our name often makes people think that we're a home healthcare agency. So for me, as I'm the outreach and marketing manager, so for me, it's sort of a bit of a challenge. It's how to convey in a nutshell what we do, that's, you know, to emphasize that we are a nonprofit and we're not a for-profit, you know, skilled nursing facility, for instance. So some of the taglines that we use, you know, quite often is something, it's just very factual. It's a statement of what we do. So one is free services, support, and resources for seniors. Yes. Another is, what was the other one I was thinking of? Well, it's sort of two parts, right? One is what we do for seniors and the service side of it. The other side of it, though, is also the message that we get out for the larger community and for our volunteers. And so a phrase that we use quite often is be a part of life, which plays on our name and our brand, but it's also that sense of community and bringing people together. And that's something, you know, kind of that warmth, that sense of connection that we have, that's a very big part of our brand. And so that tagline works really well for us because it can be used for a variety of purposes, but always to convey that same, you know, we're all interdependent, we're all sort of dependent on each other.
Yeah, I get that. And that's an excellent example of a very emotional tagline that works for you. But very often, if you were to choose between a very witty tagline or something very original but not super clear, and a very clear one that just states what you do, pick the one that's clear.
Yeah, well, and again, it's based on the purpose that it's being used for, right? Sorry, the other factual tagline that we have started using quite often is free home and community-based services for seniors.
Yes.
Because when you put that with the Life Elder Care, it really sets the context for what it is that we do.
Yes, and you can have a couple of taglines, and you can also have a positioning statement that is an expanded tagline. And you can have, and this is part of some of when I do branding, I write these brand voice guides that are 10 to 16 pages that contain the signature stories, the client empathy map, the taglines, and all of these things but I think, you know, language is huge part of branding. It's in fact, I dare say the most important one. Yeah, images could be very influential in the convincing and attracting your audience, but it has to be the right marriage of words and images.
Could I just say this? So, because I'm still struggling with the branding thing. I know we have it, but I'm trying. It's almost now in my mind that you look at your mission statement and you grab those key words that are in there. Like for ours, we're a music enrichment program.
Yeah.
Music, keeping music alive. Keeping music alive. To me, is that a tag or is that a tagline? I guess it is. But it's part of the branding. And another one is music feeds the brain while touching the heart. You know, I mean, are those words taglines that are part of the branding? In other words, your branding could, if you look at branding, it encompasses all your taglines, your mission statement, and all that, and more, right? I mean, what?
Yeah. I think there's a subtle difference there, and I often it can get complicated, right? And also there's so much jargon and lingo and branding. There's a positioning statement, there's a value proposition, there's a vision, there's a mission. My advice, don't at all pay attention to that lingo. And Vera, you're not, but your question is very simple. These could be taglines. Usually taglines are how you instruct your audience to use your services. And tell me again the first one.
Keeping music alive.
Yes, keeping music alive. That's
in children.
in children. And then the second one was
music feeds the brain while touching the heart.
okay. These are more, I would say these are more positioning statement. They show how you guys achieve the benefit. It's what you do. You keep music alive, and it's almost like your philosophy. And then the other one is the you blend the two. You blend the heart and the mind because it's important. They are clarifying statements. They need a little bit of twisting and finessing to turn into taglines, but they're very close. Like they're your philosophy, and that's where taglines come from. So I think you have it, and you don't even have to overthink it. The most important thing is if it inspires you, and if it inspires your people too.
How about music transforms lives? Music transforms children's lives, or help us transform children's lives. See, we do need to find volunteers. So it's not just that we're talking about music. We need volunteers.
Yeah, you need volunteers.
Work.
Yeah.
Can I jump in on that? Because a lot of my writing is web content for various people, and writing about themselves or whatever. And the transformation, whatever the transformation is that a business offers, is what you want to market. So if I'm working with a fitness coach and maybe the person's goal is to lose 10 pounds, the transformation is not you lost 10 pounds. The transformation is you have more energy, you're able to go out and play with your grandkids now, you don't get tired. You know, when you work with me on website content, the result is you have words for your website, but the transformation is you've turned readers into buyers, right? And so transformation is such a key part of the marketing messaging, and that can be your brand. I think it can be worked into your brand. So when you say you transform the children or you transform the students that you're working with, what is the transformation? You make them appreciate the arts, you make them have more self-confidence, you inspire them to do whatever, right? Saying that you transform them doesn't say how you've really affected them. Because in theory, everybody offers a transformation. Fani offers a transformation with your branding. I offer one of your writing. Tina offers one in somebody's well-being around their medical condition, right? Everybody has a transformation. So the marketing message is, what is the transformation?
Yes, and you nailed it. Lisa totally nailed it. And this is where the angle of your target audience comes in, because it has to be this magical blend of your philosophy, and also how you make a change for them. But it is also important for them to be able to, in a few seconds, to say, yes, that's for me. That's what I want. Yeah.
And then I'm going to finish it up, and I think we need to wrap it up. But it's something I met with some reps from Tesla today who are trying to work on their branding and show that they care about the community. And one of the things I told them, I said, I something to the effect of the quote from Maya Angelou is, people may not remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
And so I think that just underscores everything that's been said here tonight. And it's just, to me, that's just like a keeper. You know, how do you make someone feel with what words you're using or what images you're producing, right?
True. It's
Okay.
And once you encapsulate that feeling, then it's consistency and making
Mhm.
sure that that's the consistent message that's getting out around your brand.
Mhm.
yeah,